Hi, my name is Chris Allinson, and this is our showroom. This particular showroom is featured the Techni water jet. Techni water jet, this is a TechJet X3 model. This is a 5-foot by 10-foot cutting envelope. This also has a PAC 60, which is precision angle control 5-axis cutting head. This is a cantilever system. We make different sizes and different gantry systems available. This is not the only size you can purchase. Now this showroom, as you see, is extremely clean. And in fact, it is our showroom, but we also do production parts within our showroom. And you're probably wondering how you can keep this facility so clean. Well, that's the beauty about the Techni water jet system. There is minimal splash associated with this. You cut underwater. You have a very quiet, energy efficient pump, so it's extremely quiet operation, extremely easy to keep clean. For most of you looking behind me, you know this is a water jet, but the biggest thing is that this takes up a lot of floor space, and you have a lot of big columns, big tanks in the way, and it takes up a tremendous amount of space. That was one of the things that with the Techni water jet, it reduces that space, a small footprint, and it gets you the same size of equipment necessary to produce your parts. So let me show you some other benefits. Let's go over to the pump. The pump itself, this is called the ESP. This is an electro servo pump. This is the next gen pump. It's a ESP 55. This is extremely energy efficient, very quiet to operate, extremely easy to maintain as well. Seal changeover times are less than 4 minutes. Traditional seal changeover times on an intensifier may take anywhere from 30 minutes up to an hour. And if you're just getting into the process of water jet cutting, you may be looking at a couple of hours, even days. Now with the ESP changeover seal life, training is very easy. In fact, our first seal changeover time was less than 5 minutes. Another feature that you need in the water jet is a chiller. A chiller actually cools down the hydraulic as well as the electronics associated with the ESP pump. This is only a 3-ton chiller, so your cooling capacity is far less than a traditional intensifier pump. Well, sorry for the noise, but this is our pump room. And if you just look around, look at the amount of capital investment that's needed in order to operate this particular equipment. Now we've also added additional cooling towers. In fact, to service all the intensifiers, we've had to invest in 50 tons of cooling capacity. The cooling water cools the hydraulic motors. Now on the intensifier, there's a lot of cooling requirements because it's hydraulic oil that's generated. In order to do that, you need a large cooling tower. You also have noise issues. Now this particular room is just dedicated to all of our pumps as well as the cooling area. Now as you can see, this is a very large room and a tremendous capital investment is needed in order to run this equipment. So you have noise issues, you have energy issues, you have water consumption issues, and in fact, this is a lot of room for what you're needing. The biggest issue with existing units today is that a lot of traditional water jets go to a hopper system, which is this gigantic silo, and that's pressurized with air. Every time you have to load the hopper, you have to depressurize it and then repressurize it again. But at this moment in time, we're not making any money because we have to stop the operation and load the hopper. Now, the Techni hopper doesn't require a large silo. In fact, you just load it as you're actually cutting. So while you're cutting your particular requirements, all you need to do is lift the lid, grab a bag or a bucket, or even build yourself an overhead hopper system, and you could put the abrasive into the hopper itself. There's no need to shut this machine down at any time while you are cutting. That's the huge advantage over it. This particular machine, as I mentioned earlier, this is a cantilever system. Now we do make them gantry style as well, but this cantilever as well as gantry systems come with these bellows. Now the bellows themselves is sealed all the way around, which will eliminate and prevent abrasive buildup inside your drive motors. This is a huge advantage behind other competitors. The systems that we have out into our own shop have all of these screws that are associated with keeping these bellows tight, but they don't seal the abrasive. So there's a huge advantage behind this system. So let me show you how simple it is to actually program a part. And it's as simple as 1, 2, 3. Now the first thing that we have to do is to go to the properties page and then click on the sheet page. This is actually the size of material that you are cutting, as well as the thickness. So right now we're set up for a 20-inch by 20-inch piece with a 3/8 thickness of aluminum. Your next tab will be your machine tab. This is the 10 thou orifice that we're using with a 30 nozzle. So it's a 10-30 combination. 10 thou being the jewel, which the water is traveling through, and 30 thou, which is the nozzle, which 80 mesh is going to go through that particular nozzle. The next function is your nesting. If you want to nest multiple parts, you could interlock parts and nest. So there's two different ways you can actually load the part into the SoftTech software. You can use its predetermined library, or you can actually take your part on a USB and actually load it into the system. Now those are two different ways. Or the third option is to actually draw your part within the SoftTech software. So you have three different choices you can choose from. Now within the SoftTech library, you can actually add parts. So for those of you that are doing repetitious work and you have predetermined sizes or predetermined parts, you can preload that into the software and you can cut that part whenever you want it. So the operator can actually nest out whatever sheet size you give them. So within the software itself, you have some of the standard objects. So if you're cutting out a ring with multiple holes, you can click on that object and select the size of the hole, select the size of the ID, OD, as well as the internal holes. You may have other objects that you want to go through. So these are just your standard ones. Now you can also add your own library within the SoftTech software. So let's start with an object. So let's create a new object. This is our new object. And we'll go ahead and place it anywhere on the machine. It doesn't matter at this point. Once you've done that, you need to create your automatic functions, which are your lead-ins and lead-outs. Now you've turned this part into an actual program. This part now could be nested very easily as is, but we're going to do a 5-axis part. So the first thing we want to do is to do the bevel cut. Once you've created the bevel angle, you type it in. In this particular case, we've typed in 30 degrees. And then you also want to do the bevel depth, which is going to be 3/16 of an inch. You hit the OK button, and then you'll notice there's a very slight dotted line on the screen. That dotted line is actually the bevel of the part. So in this case, we only nested one part. But let's say you had 10 parts to nest out. Same, 5-axis part, very easy with the SoftTech software. What you need to do is to go back into your properties page, go to Object, and change the main quantity from 1 to 10. So let's go ahead and type that in. Hit the OK button, and now you're ready to re-nest that part for 10 pieces. They'll go through a series of sequence, and then voila, your 10 parts show up. The other benefit about pre-nesting is you can see how much of material you are wasting. Looking at the sheet, which is only a 20-inch by 20-inch, we're actually wasting more than half of the material. So if you're actually looking at this as a material cost point of view, you could have saved a tremendous amount of money by only ordering a 10-inch by 20 versus a 20-inch by 20. Now this would be a huge impact in cost if you were cutting titanium, Inconel, or high nickel alloys. That's a great advantage about the SoftTech software. Now you've just seen in this video how easy it is to program this part. Now, a lot of you may say, well, of course, because this person's done it for many, many times. But in fact, I've pulled my own operator into this room, and within 5 minutes, he already started programming parts. Now, not only in 2D, but then he was also doing it in 3D.
basically almost like a regular home computer. You know, you pull up a DXF file and you import it, and that's it. You have your part. You know, it's easier than other machines that I've ran.
So it was only 5 minutes in order for him to program a part coming from off the shop floor. Huge benefits behind the SoftTech software. So what I've shown you so far is only about a fraction of a % of what the machine is capable of doing. So there's a lot of endless possibilities. Now I've only gone through very basic systems associated with a 2D part, a 5-axis part, but let's go ahead and actually produce a 5-axis part. Maybe some of you go, that's great, but let's see it in action. And let's do that for you right now. So let's go ahead, and what I'll do is I'll pick up this little device. Now this is a little MPG wheel. This will allow me to move the gantry to different areas. This is great for an operator. Instead of walking back and forth to the controller, going back to the cutting head, this is a lot of repetitious, a lot of time associated with that. The other great feature behind this is that you can just stick it on the side of the machine and it's magnetic. So now the operator has both hands available to move the machine to its position. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm getting ready to cut this 5-axis part, and I'll just move the gantry to its location. I'll use the dial in here and change it to the direction that I want to go. Now, I could use the pinwheel just to move it over, or I could go into a jog mode. Now this jog mode goes a little bit faster. Now I'll change it to another direction. Let's move it towards me. So let's go ahead and do that. You can change it back and forth, wherever you want to go. It doesn't matter. Now let's go ahead and set up the Z height. That's going to be your up and down movement. So at this point, I definitely want to put the device on the tank. So now I have both hands available. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and move the head close to the part. Now remember, you're cutting a 5-axis part, so standoff is very critical. Now if you were only cutting a 2-dimensional part, then yes, a lot of you may just look at it and say, hey, I just want the nozzle height a certain distance away, and you could continue cutting. But with a 5-axis cutting head, you need to make sure you have a certain standoff height, which is predetermined into the software itself. So let's go ahead and move this head almost touching the part. So right there. So I'm right on the piece of material. I'll take the device, I'll put it back in its little cradle, and then I'll go into the SoftTech and I'll say, move standoff. Now the head raised up. It moved actually 118 thousandths above the material. So at this point, I want to record the location. All I do is to click on Set Plate Origin. Once I've done that, it knows its location. So if somebody came over here and say, hey, let's move this head to another location. Let's just move it out of the way because I had to get back in there for some reason. But then I want to go right back to the same location. So you go back to the controller and say Recall Origin. Once I click on Recall Origin, you will see the cutting head move back to its location. So let's go ahead and do that. Z up will come up, it'll move in its necessary coordinate plane, and then it'll go exactly to that same height that we've set it to. There you have it, it's back at the same location. So let's go ahead and look at that 5-axis part again. We'll go back. Since we've already got it on the screen, let's cut this 5-axis part. So the thing that we have to do is to turn on the chiller, and then everything else will be turned on here at the controller itself. So let me go turn on the chiller. So the chiller is on. The next step is we're going to go ahead and turn the pump on. We're going to raise the water level as well so it prevents any of the splashback. Everything is green. We'll hit start, and you'll start seeing this head move to its position. So now that the part is done, that's what we produce on a 5-axis part. We created this bevel cut. That's what it cut first. Then it created the finish hole, and then it started on the outside part. Very simple, very easy to use.
The water jet's going to save us quite a bit of time in manufacturing. We'll be able to have bevels cut on our parts previous to welding, which we do by hand now, and set up a machine, et cetera, and this is going to save a tremendous amount of time for us.
Well, let's go over and recap what we've done today. We've covered a lot of information in this briefing. We've looked at how Techni can reduce your cost per part, how it can reduce your scrap materials and speed up your cycle times, control your labor costs, and make you more competitive in the marketplace by being able to seamlessly meld into your client's just-in-time manufacturing system. But I have to say, the best is the last, and that's what we call lights out. As an alternative to adding another shift, you merely program Techni to run itself and shut out the lights when it's through. If there is ever a problem, Techni will actually let you know by phone. But there's one question that I haven't answered, and that's, is Techni a smart strategic move for your company? I don't know that, but we can find out by scheduling your team for a 30-minute meeting. To be effective, we'll need your engineering and production heads, your buyer, financial officers, and the CEO all together to make a wise assessment. There's 2 ways we can make that happen. You can visit us here in Hartford, Connecticut, or even better, use our state-of-the-art video conferencing system. So wherever these key people are located in the world, we can all be face-to-face. I'm Chris Allinson, and I'm excited about having that conversation.